All right, great. Hey, welcome to Season 3, Episode 35, also known as Episode 107 of the Retro Game Club podcast. I'm Hugh, and joining me is someone that is 2 weeks late, Rob.
Yeah, I'm stuck on a freight ship in the Pacific, just going in circles.
Was it 2 weeks or 2 months? Which one is the Steam Deck delayed?
Steam Deck is it's less than 2 months, so it was supposed to be shipped in December, and now it's being shipped in February, which for me kind of works better because you kind of get to recover from that Christmas, all the Christmas money you just spent. So
yeah, you just get that paid off, and now you can buy a $700 portable PC.
Yeah. But what have you been up to?
That's a good question. So I went to Midwest Gaming Classic. Decided to go ahead and brave that. It was pretty good. It was maybe a little less attended than the 2019 show, which I understand because for completely opposite reasons, people don't want to go to conventions, I'm sure. The show's changed quite a bit. Like the vendor area seems to be more for collectors than for people that are just looking to buy a lot of cheap games. There are cheap games. Like that's still a thing you can buy there. But at least half the vendors were people that just had import in rare games. So like if you're looking for a specific title, there were a lot of people that had, that specific title, but it would be $150 or something. And maybe that's right. Maybe there's not a lot of people looking to just buy like bulk collections of cheap games right now. Like that's probably already passed. Everybody who wants to have a wall of Nintendo games behind them probably has it.
And everyone else has an EverDrive.
Or they have an EverDrive, right. So at this point, you're just looking for DuckTales 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Got to meet Nate, who did Doodle World in person. They gave him a really, really good spot at the convention. So I hope he had a lot of good walk-up traffic.
Yeah, I hope he sold a lot of cartridges there. Maybe signed a few.
Yeah, it was very, very, very good spot. He was right at like the entrance to the arcade area.
Cool, nice.
Well, yeah. And then maybe the coolest thing I saw is not retro, but they had demo units for the upcoming Mandalorian pinball.
I've seen videos of it. It looks cool.
Yeah, I tried it. It's a very complicated game. It's got like multiple levels and videos and all kinds of stuff. I assume you're buying one. You were like the first person I thought of that would buy it.
No, I can't afford something like that. I would love it, but no. No.
All right. So what have you been up to?
Let's see. One correction from last show. Majors mentioned Demon's Tilt. I thought he was talking about Devil's Crash on the Genesis. Demon's Tilt is I think it's on PS4, but I have it on Steam. It's actually a really good game, so I just kind of wanted to amend that one. It's kind of a spiritual successor to Devil's Crush. Let's see. I beat Guardians of the Galaxy on PS5. It's a really good game. It's a really fun game. It's kind of a mix between like Final Fantasy 15's fighting mechanic with like Telltale, that developer Telltale, they did like their kind of storytelling mechanic where you could kind of choose dialogue and it affects you later. A really cool like buff system where you could hype up your team, but if you do it wrong, like you kind of get in a huddle and you have to give them a speech depending on, what they say or how they're doing. And if you give the wrong speech, you still get the buff, but none of them do. And they kind of give you it's really funny. They're like, what was that? Like, what were you even talking about? They did a really good job with this. I think my only complaint with the game would be like I'm a huge Guardians of the Galaxy fan. I read all the comics and stuff. If you don't really like and know those characters, then this game might fall flat for you. I thought it was fun. I recommend it. And then, like you, I went to a game show, but a smaller one, the Livonia Retro Game Show. When you go in and pay for a ticket, you also get a raffle ticket. And my son won the first raffle of the day, which was a countertop one-up Dig Dug 1 and 2 cabinet.
Oh, nice.
And He's almost 6 years old, and now he's shockingly good at Dig Dug 2. He's better than I am. So
Yeah, so you're gonna get him a Twitch channel. He's gonna start speed running it and contributing to the household income.
probably make more money than me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. What else? Yep. And then I picked up for NES. I picked up 720. And I picked up Kabuki Quantum Fighter. Now, with Kabuki Quantum Fighter, it had a price tag on it for $4. I'm like, oh man, I'm absolutely picking this up. This is like a $30 game or more. But I pulled out my app to see, what games, just to make sure I didn't have one of these games that I just forgot, or to see if something else was in my want list. And anytime I did that, people were kind of like, oh, you don't have to look at, everyone thought I was looking at price chart. And compare, like, no, I'll show you my phone. I'm not like, I don't really haggle, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it was not for $4. It was for more than that. And I was in one of those situations where I'm like, I kind of already wanted, told the guy I'm going to buy this thing. So I still bought it anyway, but still great prices there. I do think price chart kind of goes on the low side, which is a good thing. So yeah, we both had retro weekends.
Yeah. I really played a ton of pinball. That's because I never get to see a pinball cabinet under any other circumstances. And my kids, at the age where I can kind of just let her run loose, do whatever.
Yeah.
She mostly wanted to play Smash Brothers against like other teens. That was probably the highlight of the show for her.
Did she do good at all?
No,
beat anyone?
No, not really. No. I think it was a good experience for her, realizing that like being the best Smash Brothers player in your house doesn't translate to you actually being a good Smash Brothers player.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. So did you, like, after playing all those pinball and stuff, did you like bleach your hands?
Yeah, they had a lot of hand sanitizer stations, but it was like that super gooey, like industrial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not touching my face a lot, so I think I'm fine. I was like that before. Like even before COVID, I was not real big on touching things lots of other people have touched. But you gotta make an. I've never gotten sick at one of these shows. I mean, I maybe got a cold or something one year.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they're in spring, so it's kind of past flu season. I always get a flu shot anyway, so I don't think I've ever got anything worse than a cold.
You're not getting like norovirus.
No, I definitely don't eat. I don't eat convention food. So,
well, we should probably. We don't have that much news, but we do have a topic, so I guess we should probably start this episode.
Yeah, let's power through this news here. Use N64 Switch online controller with real hardware.
Yeah. You plug this Raspberry Pi looking thing into your Nintendo 64. It gives it low latency Bluetooth, and you could use the new Nintendo controllers. So it's not only Nintendo 64, it's the Genesis controller as well if you want to use it. And it looked like it was working pretty good, and they have all the specs and directions and stuff on GitHub. So if you, for some reason, want to do that, if somehow you got past the scalpers, you could do that.
Yes, or you could just buy a good repro Nintendo 64 controller.
Yeah, for
not as much fun, I suppose, but it's out there.
Yeah.
So sticking with hardware, there is an article about the search for the High Sierra CD-ROM specification. We're not going to go into this in great detail. I read this article. Did you read this article?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, but I think we are a strange kind of person that likes this sort of thing.
Yeah, it was about how in early days of CD-ROM, there were two competing specs for CD format, and one of them was a thing called High Sierra, which I remember seeing. It's not related to Sierra, the company, in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just about the quest to find what the actual spec is. So if you wanted to write a driver to read High Sierra formatted CDs.
Which
there are a couple.
Yeah, OS2 Warp, some Microsoft Programmers libraries, some IBM stuff. So I guess, yeah, right when ISO 9660 became standard, like overnight, High Sierra just went away.
Yeah, like HD DVD.
Right? Exactly, yeah, really strange. So if you have some CDs you can't read, we have that article for you.
Let's see. In the last hardware article here, incredible mod turns the Game Boy Advance into a mini Switch with Joy-Con and dock support.
Really impressive.
Very impressive, yeah.
So, in short, it is your standard, Game Boy Advance SP, but you put an extender on the case with a little Raspberry Pi-like thing in there. You can mount Switch Joy-Cons to it, so you can plug this into a dock to have your Game Boy Advance SP on TV, and then you could play it wirelessly. The old mod of this, you had to use the Game Boy Advance in your hand while it was plugged into the TV, so that was not ideal. So this lets you use your Joy-Cons. Pretty neat.
Very neat. All right, homebrew, ROM hacks, and emulation. How to code a Bobble clone.
That's it. That's what this is.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to save this one because I'm sure I could learn a lot from this. So
this looks like it is Python, looking at the code, if that matters too. If you want to learn Python, maybe this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty cool.
And let's see, an announcement about a new Sega Genesis game in development.
Metal Fury. Did you watch this video at all?
No, I cannot get the page to load.
Oh, it's a Metal Fury. It's a shoot 'em up. It looks a lot like R-Type, but with, I would definitely say, upgraded graphics. Like a lot of the new games. If this would have come out in the early 90s, it would have been, oh my God, this is the best game I've ever seen kind of thing, But I love seeing the new Sega games come out. And Doom running on things.
Doom running on things. Playing Doom on a 0.7 inch HD screen. That is a small screen.
Yeah. It's like as big as the head of a pencil or a dime. But it's 1080p.
Yeah, what is the screen used for?
Oh man. Let's see. I didn't read that part. All I see is you could get it on Alibaba.
Like maybe you're supposed to chain like hundreds of these together to create. Like I could see if this was 1 pixel in a much larger display, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or I could see like this being like someone trying to make your door a smart door. So instead of a peephole to look through, you would have a screen that did the exact same thing. You know what I mean? That's about all I could think of.
Yeah, maybe I could also do like status monitor for, for some industrial equipment. I can think of a lot of uses, not any that I would ever do, but I can certainly understand how you might use this.
Yeah, maybe a car part. I don't know, but yeah, it's $275.
Yeah. So that's why I'm thinking it's probably intended for industrial use.
Yeah, that's funny.
Buying hundreds of them for my theoretical giant screen of independent screens would not be cost effective.
Yeah. Maybe you can make some cool Christmas ornaments or something out of it.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one, man. Because you could buy like these kind of cheap digital ornaments where you like have a picture of your kid or whatever. And those are like $20, right? They're pretty cheap. They're not high res like this, man. You could really do a crazy good Christmas ornament with this.
Yeah. Something that kept changing. I don't know.
All right. Takedown letter pending. Sega channel revived. What is this?
So this is a homebrew Sega channel that you could get some of the original ROMs on. So I guess it kind of works in the emulators, like Pico and stuff like that. And it does crash the Mister currently, but they're working on all that, and they're trying to, get the more desirable games from Sega channel. But I guess it's not as easy as just getting a ROM from a cart, So
yeah, well, I'm guessing the Sega channel. You had to have a modem or something, right? I actually don't know the Sega channel at all.
Didn't it go through like Comcast or something?
Yes, there's probably some bit of hardware that most emulators, and the Mister's an emulator. I get it's FPGA, but it's still an emulator. It must be using like some registers or some other hardware feature that you would not have coded in an emulator because it wouldn't be worth your time.
Yeah, and memory probably runs different or acts different because you're saving this to, I don't know, NAND memory or whatever it would save to when you download it through the cable.
Yeah, I mean, the device looks like it goes into the cartridge slot. So it doesn't go into the expansion port, which I actually thought it would go into the expansion port. So, but I guess so, because then you would feed the ROM. I guess so. It's like an EverDrive in a way, right? Because it would be feeding the ROM directly into the system, which you probably can't do through the expansion port.
Yeah.
Let me think about the Sega CD. How would that work? I'm trying to dust off my knowledge of Genesis programming here. I guess you could feed a ROM through the expansion port, but going in the cartridge much easier.
Or you could kind of emulate it now.
Yeah.
So that was on Retro RGB. Oh yeah, this thing called devilutionX. This is on GitHub. It's a source port for Diablo to play on modern hardware, like Android devices, modern Windows machines, stuff like that. So if you already own Diablo in some way, you could just copy the game files, the map files and stuff like that, and make it much easier to play on tons of systems. And probably have some quality of life upgrades as well. So
There's
I
an
thought
Amiga
this
build on there.
Yeah, that's cool. In Linux and stuff like that, yeah. So I thought this was a really cool project.
Yeah, the people who reverse engineered the GTA engines got a takedown letter, but then ultimately I think their project got put back up.
And then I think I got taken down again right before the remasters came out.
Remasters, yeah. I was just watching some video of those. I was sort of on the fence about pre-ordering them. But then I saw it does have the reason I actually quit playing Grand Theft Auto 3, and I was on like the second to last mission, was it didn't have a mission restart feature. None of the old games do, right? The old games are for people who have a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Like you're in high school or something.
Teenagers, yeah.
Yeah. You're in high school and you're not popular. That's who the games are for. And like one of the missions late in the game, if you fail it, you have to backtrack a lot. And Grand Theft Auto San Andreas has a lot of that too, where like the mission takes you halfway across the whole map. And if you fail it, there's no warp. This isn't Breath of the Wild, right? You're backtracking or you're loading a save game. Neither of which are fast. The PS4, for whatever reason, decided to emulate the slow loading feature. And sometimes, again, where you save isn't necessarily near where the mission begins anyways, because you can't save anywhere. You can only save it at like a safe house or whatever.
Yeah.
So the remakes apparently have restart this mission from the starting point, which I think is the best upgrade they have. I understand like there's a lot of licensed music they now can't use anymore, so the soundtracks are a little different, but I don't really care.
No, that is strange. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy obviously had a ton of licensed music. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. All right, and the last section, which is some random stuff. Mario Easter egg in a old Saturn game. Neil Patrick Harris, 8-Bit Christmas, which I heard a really horrible review of. And Luigi's Mansion tracks how much dust you vacuum down to the milligram. Oh, I knew this because it tells you in the ending, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah, and it also it uses that number to blast out the correct number of dust as well when you reverse the whatever the vacuum's called. So weird. But yeah, it just shows how dedicated the programmers were. And yeah, what was that Saturn game that they found a Mario sprite in? It is an Astral. Have you ever played that Saturn game?
Astral. I have not played it.
I've never even heard of it, but it is.
I've definitely heard of it, but I have not played it.
It is a creepy looking Mario sprite, really creepy. But that is our news. I guess we're the only podcast to actually celebrate the GameCube's launch date on the correct week. That's what we're doing for our
Uh,
topic.
oh yeah, GameCube launch. It was 20 years ago, man.
Yeah.
20 years ago. So I always have to acknowledge, like, when you're talking about, like, fall or winter season of 2001, like, I understand this is a very sort of, it's maybe a very difficult time for some people to reflect on. So
Yeah.
it feels very weird to, it felt very weird for, like, new game systems to launch. You know what I mean? Like, I understand we had this horrible national tragedy and people wanted to go back to something that felt normal or happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It still was very surreal. Like, it's this whole juxtaposition of, like, oh, there are these new systems. There's the GameCube, there's the Xbox. We're not doing an Xbox episode. I've literally never played an original Xbox. Um, and, like, there's this little, like, sort of conflict between, like, your this state of, like, constant paranoia, and a lot of people are dealing with PTSD sort of conditions. And here's Mario.
Well, yeah, see, around that time, so from 96 and then for 7 years after that, I worked at a music store, like a guitar and keyboard store. And even when I was working in computers back then, I would still work weekends and nights there just because it was fun,
Yeah.
And the owner had owned that place for 20 years before that. And one thing he always said, and I experienced this, in 2001, was like, whenever the economy's bad, whenever, there's a new, conflict or whatever happening in the world, it's like everyone wants to buy a guitar. So I think there's some comfort in, like, guitars, video games, just kind of wanting to get away from the news or whatever.
Yeah. I completely understand that. Yeah.
But
so with that out of the way,
yeah,
because again, someone might say, like, oh man, how can you possibly look at that time period happily? And I'm like, well,
it's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag. Yeah. So I actually, GameCube launch was, like, a really, really big deal. To me, I had not bought a new system in a long time. I've talked before about how, like, in the 90s, I went back to college full time, didn't really play a lot of video. I mean, I played video games, but I was pretty out of touch with the video game scene for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's this new Nintendo system, and I watched this trailer and I thought, wow, this looks really great.
Oh yeah.
So I went in and pre-ordered one. It was the first and I believe last console I ever pre-ordered. So that was pretty much my memory there.
What game did you get with it?
I had to get 3 games. So I went to what was called EB Games at the time. It's now GameStop and previously was Electronics Boutique. And they would not sell you a GameCube. You had to buy a bundle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they really fleeced you, and you would not be able to buy a GameCube unless you bought 3 games.
Jeez.
Now, I already was going to buy Luigi's Mansion and Rogue Leader. Like, I saw the videos for those. I was totally sold.
Yeah.
So then I had to pick a third game, and let's look at the launch titles real quick.
Yeah, let me guess. Let me guess after we go through them.
Okay. All-Star Baseball 2002, Batman Vengeance, Crazy Taxi, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2. I didn't play the first one, so I don't know if I could follow the plot of the second one. Disney's Tarzan Untamed, Madden 2002, NHL Hits with a Z 2002, Star Wars Rogue Squadron, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. And I mentioned Luigi's Mansion, Super Monkey Ball, and Blue Race, or Wave Race Blue Storm. Sorry.
And which ones did you already say? You got Luigi's Mansion and Rogue Leader. I'm going to go with Crazy Taxi.
I had that on Dreamcast already.
Oh, man. Then Madden?
Madden 2002. I have not bought a new Madden game ever. This is literally the only time I bought a Madden game the year it was released. PSP is the exception. I bought, like, Madden 2008, maybe?
So did this one just blow your mind?
Yeah, it'd been a long time since I played a Madden game. And it's actually a really fun Madden game because it has like all these novelty teams. Like it has like monsters teams, like where you're playing as like Frankenstein and stuff.
Nice. That's cool.
And then it has all these like legendary players you just sort of like just by playing the game, it'll just randomly unlock like old timer players, but like in their youth. You're not playing as like, Mean Joe Green today, right? You're playing as him in his prime or something. And it has a create a team feature because at the time the Texans, the well-named Texas Texans, were a new team, and you could basically assign any player in the league to their roster. And it's something along those lines.
Okay.
And it could be like any team, like any player, including the like old time players, and you could change the uniform and the name. So you could basically make your own expansion team with no salary. Like it's very different than how Madden works today, where you have like salary cap. Where it tries to make the game real, and like people go out, like people have season ending injuries. Like none of that stuff was in 2002. It was just do whatever you want with your team.
I'm reading through this list again. This has to be one of the best launch title lists ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's well-rounded. There's a lot of pretty good games in there, at least a few.
Yeah. I mean, it's missing an RPG or anything even close to an adventure game. The GameCube in general was not a good system for RPGs, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what system did you have before this? Because you didn't have N64, right?
Well, I did have an N64, but I bought it in 2000. I bought it or late 99.
Okay.
I bought it really late. It had mostly bought it to play like Donkey Kong in Ocarina of Time. And when the Dreamcast got discontinued, which was just earlier this year, I bought a Dreamcast and a couple, clearance games, including Crazy Taxi, of course. So Dreamcast was the newest system I had, but it was already a dead system.
Yeah.
And I still did not own a PlayStation 1 yet. I literally did not own a PlayStation 1 until the compact model, the like slim PlayStation 1 came out.
Okay.
So that was probably not too far from here, but I got it, I figure like 2003 or something is when I finally bought a PlayStation.
Wow.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of that one. Again, it was because you could buy, like, at that time period, you could get like Final Fantasy VII, off the clearance rack at Toys R Us.
Yeah.
It's not like, I have to go on eBay and cut off one of my arms. You know what I mean? Like this stuff was just being cleared out and you could buy it. So I'm like, I can just go buy a bunch of RPGs and a slim PlayStation and I got stuff to play for like the next year.
Yeah, yeah.
So I got fleeced a little bit, but these are all games I was going to end up. I just talked about Madden for like 10 minutes. Clearly, I enjoyed the game. Here was kind of the weird thing about it. So like, the EB Games I shopped at was actually one I had previously worked at, and the woman who is the manager now was someone I worked with like in 1993. It had been like 8 years or something.
Yeah.
She had a kid. That's why she stopped working retail. And now the kid was school age. And she decided she wanted to work again and just came back to the same store. It's not like they gave her like 8 years maternity leave. This is retail, right? It's just, I think I want to go back and work again. Oh, look, the store I worked at is hiring. I'll go be the manager.
Yeah.
Like that was as far as it went. And the day of the GameCube launch, they didn't do midnight launches. Like midnight launches were still not consistently done. Mm-hmm. So there was no midnight launch for the GameCube. And somehow I don't remember exactly how this conversation came together, but she's like, hey, you pre-ordered the GameCube. I don't have anyone to work that morning. And like, we're gonna have a bunch of people that want to pick up pre-sales. Can you just like bag stuff for an hour? Like, can you just come in and just like fill bags for an hour? Like, yeah, I can do that. Like, nice. I didn't like get paid or anything. It was just like,
how about an old buddy?
Can you just help bag up GameCubes? And that was it. Then she gave me like a bag of like promo T-shirts that they had sitting in the back room.
That's cool.
So I walked with like a lot of shirts that I still wear today and probably should have put on eBay. So it was fun, except there was like at least one dude who was like just would not shut up about how displeased he was that there wasn't a midnight launch. Like, I'm sure this guy's on 4chan right now still complaining about it.
Yeah.
So what else? Oh, and then also for the launch, I really wanted an S-video cable.
Okay.
Because I thought it would look better. I don't think there's really that big of a difference. But it was sold out like everywhere. And at the time, I had to commute to Chicago 3 days a week. So I just hopped on. We can't really take an L there, but I took an L as close as I could to the Toys R Us on Michigan Avenue, which luckily had it. And I think that is now the massive Starbucks, the like 4-story Starbucks in Chicago, I believe is the old Toys R Us. So, yeah, at the time I was working a lot and I was also doing graduate school in the evenings. So it really became like a Christmas break system for me, man. From like, mid-December to, early January, I played a lot of those 3 launch titles.
Yeah. I mean, those are all good games.
Played a ton of them, yeah. And then when I look back at like the legacy of the system, I know we're talking about the launch here, but like the legacy seems to be Smash Brothers and Mario Kart. Like you go to Midwest Gaming Classic or any convention, there will be the GameCube version of both of those games hooked up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
People just love those versions. And the other thing is it's a really, really great way to play through the Game Boy library because the Game Boy adapter works really well. There's also a third-party one like Game Shark or Pro Action Replay, one of those borderline sketchy companies, made their own version. But yeah, it's a really, really fun way to play through like Game Boy games if you don't want to play through an RPG or a Zelda game or something on your TV as opposed to on the little screen.
Huh.
And then Zach did a bunch of research for us, so I feel like we definitely have to include it. So he mentions that there were different colors when it launched. It was indigo, black, and silver. I believe I have the indigo one. If indigo means purple, that's the one I have. All North American GameCubes have composite out, but there are differences in the 2 models. So units produced before 2004 could use digital component AV cables and output progressive scan. And they had a second serial port, but that's not really used for anything. And you could customize the nameplate. Which I have a launch system. I did not realize that nameplate was detachable until now.
That is strange.
Yeah. So everything I just listed is off the GameCube starting with 2004. It also had firmware that disabled most or all of the action replays. And apparently it had a faster or better laser, but it was less reliable and broke. And then he also mentions a history of bundles. So I mentioned I had a forced bundle, but over the years, Nintendo would release actual real bundles. They had a Metroid Prime bundle that was the black console. And in Europe, you got an extra Samus faceplate. There's a Pokemon XD bundle in America and Japan, which is silver with a Pokemon faceplate. One I distinctly remember, the Heineken variant. This is a real thing. So it's a very small number were made. It is licensed, but it was a special console produced by Heineken or licensed by Heineken with the Heineken logo on it. And you had to buy some absurd number of Heineken bottles to get it.
You think this would have been a green console, but it was black or indigo.
It was basically just the console with a different faceplate.
Yeah.
And that giveaway, you had to purchase 10,000 Heineken bottles.
I see that as a challenge.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not even probably like. I bet Slayer goes through 10,000 Heineken bottles on one tour. I think that's probably pretty a low estimate. One of their guitar players had a custom like Heineken themed guitar and then died of something related to drinking too much. ATI console. It was there's only about 50 of these, and they were given away to employees at ATI who helped develop the system.
Now that is cool. That is something I would like.
That is cool. Yeah, I don't think I've seen one of those. And IBM special version. It is estimated between 100 and 500 versions are made. Not much is known about it. And then where's that silver Japanese one? What is that one called?
The Panasonic Q?
Yeah, Panasonic. Yeah, so that's not a Nintendo one. It's just Panasonic made a system, and
it's a DVD player.
It's a DVD player, but it plays GameCube games too.
Yeah, speaking of which, the GameCube used those mini DVDs. They were almost DVDs. They were so close to being DVDs, just a little bit different. The laser is really touchy, so eventually, I think it was the Game Shark or something that broke the copy protection, so you could just go to Walmart or whatever and buy some mini DVDRs and play some copied games. But you can really ruin your laser that way too. You know, talking about the IBM and the ATI versions, ATI bought ArtX, which Nintendo is working with to create the GPU. And IBM made the PowerPC processor, and their version was called the Gecko for this one. And to kind of put it in perspective of what the GameCube was, the Nintendo 64 was almost 100 megahertz with 4 mega RAM. The GameCube was 500 megahertz with 24 mega RAM. And the Wii was 730 megahertz with 88 megs RAM. So in terms of processing power, we're not talking about GPU or anything really. Not too much difference between the GameCube and the Wii, but a huge difference between Nintendo 64 and the GameCube. And the GameCube was more powerful than the PS2. It's just no one cared because you got a free DVD player with your PS2.
Yeah, I mean the PS2, and I think the Xbox had some like attachment you could buy to make it a DVD player, but it wasn't a DVD player.
HD DVD.
Yeah, it was Xbox 360 was HD DVD.
Oh, okay.
The original Xbox had some kind of adapter, but that means you're buying two things versus the PlayStation 2, which was just a DVD player with nothing else. And Nintendo was not really interested in, making a system to watch movies on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My launch memory of it was, and I live near I'm using air quotes, city called Pontiac, Michigan. And it's one of those cities that, so you remember Pontiac, the car that was discontinued a long time ago? Yeah.
They were giant American cars, right?
Yeah, and the Firebird and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That came from Pontiac, Michigan, and the city never came back. And every 5 years, it's like Pontiac's on the comeback. There's a new brewery or something that lasts, 6 months. But anyway, for some reason, Nintendo decided to have their GameCube pre-launch party in Pontiac, Michigan. And it was, they had these in all major cities, but they chose Pontiac, Michigan for one. And it was surreal to go to. You could go and play Luigi's Mansion and stuff like that. I'm sure they had Jolt Cola or, some other sponsors there too. If you Google those events, it's funny because you could see like Paris Hilton, or I'm trying to think of other stars from back in the early 2000s all holding up some GameCubes. Really strange. But anyway, I was so impressed with it. I thought Luigi's Mansion was, unique and fun, and I was really excited to get my GameCube. I didn't get it pre-order or on opening day simply because I had to save some money, and so, but I did get it still in the time, a month or two after. And I want to call it February, maybe. So there really weren't that many more games available. And also, some games, for some reason, at least where I went, were hard to come by. Mm-hmm. So I bought mine with the only two games that they had at the store, which were Batman Vengeance and Super Monkey Ball.
Okay.
And back then, I really didn't like Batman Vengeance only because it wasn't Grand Theft Auto. The other night, I played it again, and I watched some video. And let's just say I may have been wrong back then, and this is definitely going to be a Game Club game very soon.
Okay.
Because it was so at that time also I had just moved back to America from Australia, and I was crashing at my parents' house for longer than I care to admit. And I had a buddy that lived maybe a mile from me. I used to actually do what they would do in commercials, and it's like put my GameCube in my backpack and walk over to his house and play GameCube at his house.
Like a giant dork. Yeah.
Like a giant dork, yes. We would consume a lot of beer doing that, but yeah. But I really don't remember buying many games after that. I definitely didn't have any of the Zelda games because I either had it on Nintendo 64 already, or I just wasn't playing a lot of video games at that time when the ones that weren't on Nintendo 64 came out.
Yeah, so I pre-ordered like all the Zelda games for the system, and there's a pretty steady stream of like free promo discs that came with them that are now super rare. So like there's the Legend of Zelda collection and Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and like all these like bonus things you would just get for pre-ordering these games, that are pretty good versions. I would argue Ocarina of Time on GameCube is probably better than what's currently on the Switch.
There's YouTube videos that prove that you're correct.
Okay. All right.
Side by side.
I was just kind of guessing that too. But yeah, I mean like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, just absolutely great Zelda games. Wind Waker is probably in the top 3 or 4 for me. And then even like Four Swords Adventures, which is it's a Zelda game with no plot. If you just like the mechanical part of Link to the Past, but you don't want all the story. That's kind of what Four Swords Adventures is. It's fun. Definitely like it.
I played Wind Waker in 2005. I borrowed my I lived in a small apartment building, and the guy below me played a lot of video games, and he let me borrow his GameCube and Wind Waker. So I didn't beat it then, but I'm waiting for it to come out on Switch. I feel like it's new enough where they would actually port it instead of trying to emulate it.
It's on Wii U, right? So they did an HD upgrade for Wii U, so you could maybe port that to Switch. The problem is the Wii U one really takes advantage of the dual screen. So they'd have to kind of undual screen it, which you can do. You could play it without the dual screen, but what's kind of nice about it is you can play with a regular controller, and you can just set the Wii pad by the TV and just use it as the map.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a really good job with it.
I wish, that would come to the Switch because I really want to play that again. I've never played Twilight Princess, so I'm really excited to play all these games. I'm just like I'm sitting on my Steam library because I want to use the Steam Deck. I'm kind of waiting to play a ton of games that I really would like to play and not have to emulate or spend a bunch of money on eBay. I'd like to just play it on my Switch, just make it simple. So we'll see how long that takes and if I crack and just start playing it. But what are there any other games you'd like to mention about the Switch or peripherals or anything?
Yeah.
About the GameCube.
No. I was trying to focus like on launch related things, I guess. So I wasn't going to talk about like the library too much beyond that, but. Yeah, like I said, not a great system for RPGs. Very good system for Nintendo games. If you obviously, I guess that goes without saying. But it has like Mario Golf has a pretty good version of that. I already mentioned like Smash Brothers and Mario Kart. The Metroid Prime series I hear is really good, which I still haven't played. I also have a lot of like collections. I mentioned the Zelda collections you can get, but there's like a Mega Man collection. There's a Sonic collection. There's all the Midway and Namco Museum stuff. I mean, the same stuff you get on PS2, I suppose. We had a lot of good stuff there too. And like RPG wise, it's a little weak. You got like Skies of Arcadia's on there, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door's on there. There's one or two others I tried that I really wouldn't recommend, unfortunately. So not a great system for RPGs, but a really great system for first party Nintendo games.
Yeah, and the arcade games like Crazy Taxi, and Super Monkey Ball, which is weird because with the Xbox coming out about the same time, everyone, because of the controller, I think, and because of Windows CE, everyone kind of considered the Xbox as the Dreamcast 2, but this had the Sega games on it. The GameCube did, so I kind of consider this the Dreamcast 2.
Yeah. I mean, Super Monkey Ball, we did that on a previous episode, and Super Monkey Ball really, it's the most Dreamcast game that's not on the Dreamcast, if that makes sense. Like it just looks and sounds and feels like everything about it screams Dreamcast.
Exactly. Yeah. Or Sega arcade, just that feel.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, I went to Dave & Buster's the other night, and they had that Luigi's Mansion environmental cabinet we were talking about.
Oh yeah. How was that?
It is not a good game.
Okay.
It is completely different. So you don't need to play that one.
I wasn't planning on it. I've never been in a Dave & Buster's, and honestly, it's not on my list. I don't know how to put it. That's something where like everything has buffalo sauce on it, right? Is it one of those places?
No. The food is surprisingly good, and the beer list is actually surprisingly good.
Okay.
So it's one of those places that you want. I mean, it's totally cheesy. It's Dave & Buster's, but it's hard not to have fun there, and the food is better than it should be.
Okay. Yeah, let me look at the menu for the location that's closest to me here. All right. Download full menu. This is on PDF. Yeah, again, we're recording over lunchtime. It's national holiday, so I have the day off. I'm not ditching work.
Yeah.
But it is lunchtime, so there's a lot of... Yeah, okay, I don't see Buffalo Wings on here. I thought it was like basically Buffalo Wild Wings, but with some arcade games.
No. And if it was that, I would not mind.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm just saying, not my thing.
But anyway, any closing thoughts on the GameCube launch?
No. I mean, I still have a pretty good backlog of GameCube games. It still assists my fire up a few times a year. So I don't know. I don't see the system ever really dying for me. I mean, it may physically die one day, but I think it'll be something I always go back and play.
Yeah, or you could fix it with an SD card upgrade, I'm sure, in the future, if the laser dies.
Yeah.
But should we do some game club discussion?
Yeah. I don't know if either of these are going to be very long.
No, I think we could plow through mine at least. So I did Kid Niki, Radical Ninja. Not a good game at all. It's a Data East game from 1987 on the NES. I guess it's for arcade, Commodore 64, and Apple II, but I haven't played any of those, just the NES one. And you are a radical ninja named Kid Niki who spins the sword around. I guess you're in the beginning of the game, this bird flies by, it gets shot by an arrow with a note that says like your girlfriend's been stolen. I don't know, it's just normal, but
normal ninja problems.
Yeah, yes. And I'm not sure there's one good thing about this game. I picked this game because a buddy of mine had it when, I was in elementary school. I think elementary or middle school, probably elementary school. And we played it a lot, but I think it was because we didn't have many games. And I thought it was fun back then, but of course, probably because I didn't have many games to base it off of, other than like 2600 games. This almost looks like a 2600 game. And it has maybe the most annoying theme song that will not stop. That's
what stood out for me, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I turned my volume down to where I can almost not hear anything. The only good thing about it is the bosses are kind of big. That gets negated because there's so much flicker with the bosses that to me, it's almost unplayable. The normal enemies kind of work like, was a Kung Fu Master, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I kind of give this game an F. You could kind of skip this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought was that the Nintendo seal of quality is officially meaningless to me. This game was
Yes.
awful. I played through the first stage and I'm like, oh, finally, second stage. Now maybe there'll be some new music because I was about ready to pull my ears out. And no, second stage, same music.
Yeah, yeah. And the boss mechanic is, like I said, they're really big. When you hit them with your sword flies away, so you have to run back to your sword after every hit on every single boss.
Yeah, yeah, that was annoying too. I did not play past the second stage. When I heard the same music fire up, I turned it off.
Yep. Yeah.
And I watched a video of the arcade version. It visually looks better. It doesn't look like it's any more fun to play.
Okay.
It looks it basically looks mechanically the same. Just with weird, like, first of all, I died right away because I saw like these cute little bird things. I'm like, oh, that must be like a power up because they're so like cute, harmless looking birds. Clearly, you must like have to grab those. Like a cute, harmless bird can't kill a radical ninja, right?
And you love birds because you were so sad when the one got hit with an arrow in the beginning.
Yeah. So
And
like,
then
oh,
you do bird genocide throughout the whole game after that.
yeah, it's awful. Like everything about this game is awful. It
Yeah.
just shows that games that you loved as a kid, sometimes you go back and play them and you realize, oh, this was actually garbage and I just had bad taste.
Yes. Hudson's Adventure Island is 100 times better than this game, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, right. And that's a game that I, again, as an adult, go back and say, why did I like this game as a kid?
Yep. Exactly. So let's move on to your game before I get angry.
I did Lego Star Wars, and I always play the GameCube version. That's the one I always go back to. And I realize there's multiple games called Lego Star Wars. I, for whatever reason, really like the prequel trilogy, which is the first one, the best. Maybe because it's like a better. This is so sounds so stupid, but it's like a better retelling of the prequels than the prequels are.
Yes, it doesn't sound stupid.
Like if you took all right, the Senate has a meeting and there's an amendment that we need to vote on to pass the ordinance to whatever. Like all that stuff's removed. It's just action.
Yeah.
It's just, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, they got to go to this planet and fight a bunch of stuff. Move on to the next thing, right? So the whole game is like that. And it's so much better, I think, than watching the movies in many ways. Especially I like the third one. So that part's really fun. And there's a lot of replay because as you play it, you earn coins. Well, not coins, whatever. They're golden single Legos, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And you use that to unlock more characters. And each level has like things that are locked behind certain character abilities. So you're kind of encouraged to replay the stages anyways with different characters. It's kind of fun. Like when you can finally unlock, Darth Maul or something. That's kind of fun to play as.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool stuff like that. There were later games that use the same engine. There's like a Lord of the Rings one and Harry Potter ones. And they're very good, but they also kind of go overboard with the character abilities to where it's like almost complicated at times. The Star Wars games are very, very simple. Like each character has an attack, the attack range and speed, that kind of stuff is a little different. And they all have one ability. Like just each character has one special ability you can use on the stage.
Okay.
So, like R2-D2 can operate the R2-D2 panels. And if you're a Jedi, you can fix things with the Force. Like you each have one ability. So it's very simple. You don't have to think too much when you're playing it. It's just, power through the game, destroy everything, collect pigs, and move on. It's very, very fun.
Yeah. I checked out the GBA port as well. My notes, say it's a shockingly impressive looking game. Which I'm finding the more the GBA is kind of a missed system for me. And so the more I dive into it, the more I'm impressed with that system. I think 90s Star Wars music with the MIDI sounding format is one of my favorite things in the world, and this knocks it out of the park. It has kind of like that X-Wing on Windows and a few other games. It really hits that soundtrack for me in MIDI. It's probably not MIDI, but it sounds like it. MIDI samples.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely not MIDI, but it's
yeah. And the combat isn't great, And I think my only other criticism would be that if you die, sometimes the checkpoint was like 10 minutes ago. But that's really nitpicky because you're taking a GameCube game and porting it to GBA, so you're doing pretty good there. So yeah, I'm glad you picked that one. That was a cool one.
Yeah. Do you think you'd ever try any of the other Lego games?
Oh, with my kid, we play a ton of them. We do Jurassic Park. Yeah, right. Jurassic Park the most. We downloaded Lego World, and I can't really figure it out. And we have Marvel, DC villains, a ton of them.
Yeah, so I have like Batman. I think I've had on Vita or something, and I have Harry Potter. I think is split into 2 games, maybe. I think they do 1 through 4 and 5 through 7, something like that.
Okay.
And I have at least one of the Lord of the Rings. I think they made like 3 of them though. I think I don't know if they did that per movie, but I feel like there's multiple Lord of the Rings games. It's kind of hard. Like you kind of lose track after all. They just make so many of them. Like you shot off a few I forgot existed.
Yeah, Lego games are surprisingly good games.
Yeah.
Cool. I think to keep it on the Star Wars theme and the GameCube theme, I'm going to go with Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader for next episode.
We talked about the first game, I think. I feel like. So this is a good excuse to play this one.
Yep.
And I'm going to do Burnout. So this will be, I think the first time we've ever talked about the Burnout series. And the original Burnout is on GameCube.
Okay,
a lot of other things too.
I looked this up and it kept bringing up like Burnout : other games, other names. Right, hold on. So I didn't know which one to play.
Well, you can play any of them if you want. The thing about the first Burnout is it doesn't have the crash mode that the later games are probably more famous for.
Okay.
It's just a straight up racing game.
I'll definitely check it out.
All right. Email, which of course is, what is it? email@retrogameclub.net? That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
So shoot us some emails or hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or more. We have a link tree in our show notes, so you could see all that there. And Zach maintains all of that. And it looks like we got at least one email here.
Yeah, something from Stanley, who attended the Midwest Gaming Classic also. He was 13 hours away, so I assume he must have stayed at the attached hotel. Actually, the attached hotel was not attached. There's a skywalk, because it's Milwaukee, there's skywalks, right? Because of winter. So there's a skywalk from the hotel to the convention center, but that was all torn up because I parked in the hotel parking garage because that's where Spot Hero sent me. And yeah, you actually still have to walk outside anyways, so whatever. All right, sorry, totally off topic, but he says he bought a bunch of board games there. Fireball Island, a couple of Robotech games, and the Steven Jackson conspiracy game. So that's pretty cool. There are a lot of board. There was one vendor that was selling a ton of board games that I remember towards the back, if that was something you were looking for. And he also finished his Neon Genesis Funko Pop collection there, so that's good. That might have been the same vendor that had like every Funko Pop you could think of.
Probably.
Yeah. He mentions that he got into that show in the 90s via bootleg VHS tapes, so everybody got into Japanese cartoons in the 90s. For video games, he mentions picking up Crime Buster for the Atari XEGS and a backup Sega Saturn. He was looking to find a Lynx, but they don't find a Lynx, only the Lynx 2. And one shop he thought was possibly selling questionable Lynx games. They described the games as new, but the packaging did not look extremely new. So, you do see that sometimes, but it's weird. Like the show used to be like in the old, the Zeros used to have a ton of Lynx stuff, and that has definitely declined over the years. And he mentions that because of Midwest Gaming Classic, he's now only 5 titles away from a complete Atari Lynx library.
Nice.
It's just pretty impressive. And He mentions there was a lot of Vectrex stuff at MGC and was wondering if this was a Midwestern thing. So I'll just say real quick, like the Vectrex technically was unveiled in Chicago. It was a consumer electronics show, in 82, 83, whatever year it launched. So it was first unveiled in Chicago, and Chicago being the third biggest market in the US. Like in that time period, new consoles would come to Chicago, New York, LA, and other major cities, but like these three would get a lot of these consoles. So I'm not surprised that like Vectrex is very common, relatively speaking, near Chicago. Wisconsin, and you go to thrift stores in Wisconsin, there's not a lot of game stuff. It's just at least old game stuff. I mean, obviously they have GameStops and stuff now, but there was a time period where I think a lot of game systems you had to be near a major city to get it. Or you had to get it from the Sears catalog, right?
Yeah, I was going to say a giant department store.
Yeah, which might have been an hour away for you. So what else here? Okay, so he also liked in the pinball tournament, they're using the new Stern Pinball Online score tracking. And you can actually have a table achievements in your Stern profile. Nice.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And some games that support it are the new Godzilla, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin, Iron Maiden, Black Knight 2000, Elvira, Beatles, and Jurassic Park all support this system.
I heard that new Elvira game's really great.
They had the old Elvira pinball there.
That's a good game. That's a really good game.
It's good. Yeah, it's really hard. I did not do well at that game. So that was there. And he says he thought the arcade auction that they had, the prices were pretty fair, and it was a good selection of pinball games. So thank you for the feedback on the show. We're not affiliated with them in any way, but I do recommend going a lot. Yeah,
so Stanley, thank you. We got some social media feedback about GameCube memories. Someone writes in that the Game Boy player was awesome, and if you got the Tron 2 Game Boy Advance cart, you got both arcade games on your console, which is cool.
Oh, I did not know that at all.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Hold on, I gotta buy this game now. How much is that? Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Someone else says Beautiful Joe. Another person, Monkey Ball, Animal Crossing, Tony Hawk 3. He played a ton of those, and obviously recommends F-Zero. Someone says in 2008 they had a chance to get 30 GameCube games for free, but they were about to have a second kid and had no room for it and didn't take it. He's kicking himself now. Yes, that would hurt. And what else do we have here? Someone says a great system and awful controller. I like the controller.
The controller is very good for certain types of games.
Yeah.
I mean, if a game requires like 4 buttons, it's not great. It's good for games where there's really like one primary action button, like Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
It's very bad for like Mortal Kombat. If I wanted to do Street Fighter 2, that's a game everybody understands. Trying to do Street Fighter 2 on the GameCube controller would indeed be an awful experience.
Yeah, that would not be great. And then someone likes Kid Niki a lot. There's people with all sorts of opinions on that game. How much is that?
I was not a fan. So looks like Tron on Game Boy Advance is not very expensive to buy loose.
It's Tron 2, right?
Tron 2 Killer App. Yeah, I gotta see. So it has arcades in it. It has the arcade version of those games in it. I mean, the game itself does not look spectacular. All right. So again, if you want to email us, what do they do?
Email us at email@retrogameclub.net or hit us up on Facebook, facebook.retrogameclub.net or all of our other places. And we're working on a really big show coming up. So I'm excited to reveal that soon. But what are our new games? We got Rogue Leader and Burnout.
Yeah.
So all right, thank you everyone.
Yeah, thank you for listening.